Okay, hey guys, Taylor here with Traveling Taylor, and I have a guest this week. This is Spencer.
Hey.
And he is the CEO of Hacker Paradise, which is a trip that I am currently on. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to pick his brain and get all of his knowledge out to you guys about remote work, the different ways that you can do remote work, and just the challenges and pros and cons to actually being a remote worker and full-time digital nomad. So I've invited Spencer to come hang out with me for a little bit, and we've got our wine. Do we want to cheers?
Do a good cheers to start us off. Cheers. We're also in my room, which looks like Barbie threw up everywhere. 100% pink, and there's even like inspirational quotes on the wall.
There's good ones, and they all say different things, and not all of them are in English. Some of them are in Portuguese. I've seen Italian. Mine's in Korean.
It's a very international house.
It's a very international house. It's great. Okay, so first question I just want to ask is, how did you get started? Like, I know you had a more traditional type job before you started working with Hacker Paradise. So how did you make that transition and that leap to working remotely?
Yeah, I did. I used to teach Korean at university, and then I did project management at a software company in the States. And so when I was doing that job doing software, I was consulting a bunch. So I traveled a bunch in the States. And in my head, that's like a little bit of nomading. Like during the week I would go and work from a different location. And then when I just got sick of it, I said, I'm going to go return to like roots of living abroad and doing different things. And that's when I stumbled upon the whole digital nomad thing. And I took my current job and really tried to make it work nomadic. And they said no. So I said, screw you, like I'm leaving. And I quit. And that's when I came out here. So my first time being a nomad was actually when I came and joined Hacker Paradise, and I was supposed to be a participant and doing some of my own projects. And I thought, I'll do this for like a cheeky little summer and see how it goes, and then go back and get what my mom calls an adult job at home. And then I ended up working for Hacker Paradise and have been out on the road for 3 years since.
Okay, so back to remote work. In your position, I feel like it's kind of unique in that you bring digital nomads to you, which is quite impressive, really, if you think about it. Like, the idea of being a digital nomad is that you're nomadic. So the fact that you have a company where you get people to commit to coming together at the same time, I think is kind of impressive.
Nomads have commitment problems, so it is really impressive because nobody wants to like commit to a place or commit to anybody or whatever. And so to convince someone to come with us for a month, 3 months, 6 months takes a lot of work a lot of times.
Yeah. So you've seen people, though, have a lot of different types of jobs that they're able to do remotely. So kind of just give your, I guess, experience and perspective on really the variety and the range, or is there anyone that kind of like surprised you, like, oh, you can do that remotely? Like, just kind of getting an idea of, is it really something that a lot of people can do, or do you find that it's really niched into a lot of different jobs?
I think a lot of people can do it, way more than you generally think. So you'll see a lot of people on the road that are engineers or graphic designers or entrepreneurs. Those are like really common things you might see, or like someone who's writing online or doing some sort of digital marketing or advertising. Those are pretty common to see. But especially in like the tech field for tech companies, there's a lot of jobs that have moved remote. So whether it's like HR or marketing or PR, any of those things, lots of times for remote companies, for digital, or I think for tech companies, they're really advanced in those work in remote policies. And so the whole company works remote. We also have seen, while I've been out here, lots of jobs that you don't think would work remote find a way to do it. So we've had people with us who are doctors or nurses and either do some sort of telemedicine or do some sort of management. So then they're like managing other people, which is something you don't think that people would be doing remotely. The other one that I always see that surprises people is real estate. So we've had real estate agents that come with us, because you think, how do you show a house to somebody if you're not there? Well, you realize that that's the only thing that you really have to be there for. So they do all of the finding clients, interacting with them, finding houses, and then setting everything up. And then they have an assistant who then will do the showing of the house. And then everything else is online.
That's so true, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
For a lot of us, we think, oh, I can't do my job remotely because of this or this or this. Well, there might be an option to just take that piece and leave someone to do it in person or find some other way to do it electronically or remotely. There's a lot of ways to figure out how to do things remotely.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that was actually much wider spectrum than I even thought. And I've met people doing this so far. So yeah, if there's a will, there's a way, you guys.
Right.
Okay, so you mentioned that you have a handful of people who come on these trips who do actually work for companies, and we have a handful of people right now who work for companies. Do you have any tips for people who want to start working remotely but love their job and don't want to leave? How to start that conversation with their manager or boss?
Yeah, I generally tell people to make a business case. So think it through, make a presentation, and be really upfront about the pros and the cons. Because you can't just sell this half-baked idea and then think, I won't tell them about the parts that are difficult, and maybe they'll just not realize it later. They're going to figure it out. And so we usually have people make a business case, and they'll talk about the perks. So the perks of working remote is generally your employees are more happy. There's a higher retention of employees at the company. It's really good for staff happiness. They get to network with a lot of different people. They can learn and do new skills while they're abroad. And then we have people talk about the cons. The biggest con of what's difficult generally is time zones and communication. Yeah. So we tell people, let's address these up front, and then you can talk with your employer about, okay, here's what is a potential problem. Now let's talk together about a strategy about how we can work to avoid this becoming a bigger problem. So we have people present a case, and usually an employer is really impressed that you've gone through the whole effort to do that whole thing and you've thought it through. For a lot of people as well, employers are worried that you might just go and be on vacation and be pretending to work.
Right.
So for people who are thinking of doing it for the first time, a lot of times coming with a group like ours, coming with Hacker Paradise, is really comforting to an employer. Because then it's this person isn't just off on the beach doing whatever. They're with a group of other people working. They're with professionals, and so I know that the basics of Wi-Fi and making sure they have an office space and all that stuff is taken care of, and from an employer's perspective, that's really comforting.
Yeah, and I can confirm many of us spend most of our days working. We're not on, maybe not Spencer, but a lot of us we're not on vacation. We are working, we're doing our jobs, but then when we're not working, we just get to go do and explore the city that we're in, which I think is the biggest draw for me. Is I can step outside my door and talk with our Korean buddies, or I can go see a new place, or I can experience a new culture, and so it just makes the outside of work time a little bit more interesting sometimes.
Yeah, everybody thinks that we're just partying all the time or on the beach. And as much as I love the beach, I do not go there every day. But you don't take pictures and post on Instagram of the 12-hour days you had at the office.
No.
So my mom just thinks I'm on vacation.
All the time.
Mom, if you're watching, I work. I do a lot of work. It's just my Instagram is not pictures of me frustrated in the office. Why would I post that?
No, it's not necessary. Although then some days you get to do what I did yesterday and go to a cat cafe and work while I have some cats hanging around. And that's not a bad way to be a digital nomad either.
Did the cats actually like you?
They did. Did you not see my pictures?
I did.
Sitting in my lap, and one of them got in Blaine's lap and on his computer. They were active cats. We went to a better cat cafe than you did.
We've been to one around here where the cats just don't care about anybody at all. They just walk around and do their own thing. You try to touch them and they kind of meow and run away.
Yeah, this one was better. So we talked about people who want to ask their boss how to work remotely. So as someone who actually runs a completely remote team, from the boss perspective, what do you see as the biggest challenges, or what is it actually having a fully remote company?
Different. It's very different than what I did before. It's hard to describe to people if you haven't been in this space.
Yeah.
I have employees that I have never met.
In person.
In person, yeah. I mean, I've chatted with them over Skype and whatnot, and email and Slack and all the online tools we use to communicate. And usually I try to like travel around and see them, but one of them has been elusive. She's worked for me for almost a year, and I've never met her. And that's really strange for a lot of people. So it's really important for us when we're hiring and then when we're interacting with people and trying to do lots of activities to get people to connect, that we have ways to have the team get to know each other, even if they never meet each other in person. Because you don't realize this a lot, but just the daily interactions you have with people build a rapport, which then makes it easier to work together. You understand each other, and then when some misunderstanding happens, that could turn into something not great. If you know the person and you understand them and you feel like you're friends, then that just kind of like goes away easily. Where if you don't know them, you just shut down and blame the other person. It escalates into something bigger.
Especially like communicating via Slack. It's kind of like communicating via text. It's just not the same as...
There's no body language. There's no intonations. Emojis are really helpful. But sometimes emojis are not helpful because they're intentionally vague. So it's like, why is there a hammer at the end of this message? Like, what does that mean? I don't know.
Were you throwing down the hammers? Were you intentionally being vague in your...
No, someone else was writing it. But for us, we try to do, we were a company of 2 or 3 people when I started, and now we're a company of 12. So while that doesn't seem like a huge jump for us, that's timesing the company by 4 times, and that's quite a large amount. And so where I used to like sit in the same place and be in the same country as people, now everyone's spread out. We've had to put in different structures to but help people stay connected. So we have regular chats and donut buddies and other activities that we do internally to make sure that people socially are connecting as well as like getting along and communicating about work.
Okay, so kind of going back to the fact that you do travel like a lot throughout the year. Have you actually ever counted how many places you've been to in 1 year? Like, do you have
like countries or cities or
whatever your list consists of? Like, have you ever just counted something? Yeah. What's your number?
For a year? I was just doing it yesterday. The thing is, I bounce back and forth between the same locations a lot. Like, I have to keep track for my taxes and my visas, like where I go all the time. And so even though I'm living in Buenos Aires, it's like I'm here, but then I go to Uruguay for the weekend because it's easy. You just take a ferry, and then I go back, and then for Christmas I go to the beach in Uruguay, and then I go back, and then I go up to Iguazu and go to the Brazil side and then come back down. So like in my head, I've been in Buenos Aires the whole time, but by my passport, I've like left 5 times.
Right.
So it just depends how you count it.
Well, how do you count it?
Simple counting wise, I've been to like, I don't know, maybe 9 cities this year that I've stayed in for a couple days at least. 4 countries basically.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good though. I mean, I prefer the slow travel life.
I like slow travel too. I can't do the like, do a week here and then pick up a move and do a week here. Mine's always like, oh, well, I tell myself it's a month minimum. But you saw my schedule for the summer. It's not a month minimum. But it's summer. Summer you're allowed to like road trip and
some of that's vacation, which is different from work travel life.
That's true. Very different. I don't have a home base anymore. Like, I got rid of my apartment, I sold my car, I have 2 boxes at my parents' house. But for me, having a home base even when I travel is really convenient to just say, I'm going to live here for 3 months, but even if I leave for a week or 2 weeks, like, there's stuff where my suitcase is staying, even though I might pack a day bag and go out, for a week. There's something about that that's really comforting.
Yeah, I agree. So have you found that there's any locations that are harder or easier to work from? Like, do you have a place where you're like, I know it's going to be a struggle for this month for whatever reason? Maybe it's distractions, maybe it's internet speeds, maybe it's, I don't know, whatever it is.
For me, because I do a lot of work across a lot of time zones, Asia can be difficult because I feel that I wake up for meetings at 8 in the morning and then I'll have meetings at 11 p.m. So for me, part of that's like me not structuring my day correctly. But then it's like, oh, I'm just working all day. Like that I don't love. So right now with my job, that can be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But before I used to live here, and when I didn't have as many meetings, it was no problem.
It was fine.
Yeah, so it's just like me and my job now. Besides that, if the Wi-Fi is shit, then like nobody's happy. So like, there's a lot of beautiful tropical islands that I would love to go to because I love the beach, I love being in the water. But if it doesn't have a solid Wi-Fi connection, it's just a non-starter for me.
Yeah. I think that's pretty across the board for most digital nomads.
Yeah.
It's a hot topic in Facebook groups anyway. It's like, where can I go? Where do I have good Wi-Fi? So is there anything, so you said you've been doing this for 3 years full time now. So is there something that you've seen within this sort of remote work, travel digital nomad industry that you really don't like that you're kind of critical of?
I don't like when people only talk about the lifestyle through rose-colored glasses. Because like anything, there's great things about it, and then there's things that are difficult. You know this. I know this. But people, to get an article published in the New York Times, will write about like how I'm making my life as I go as a digital nomad, and I've never been happier, and I'm making more money than I've ever made. And like, I don't know, maybe that person just has a really lovely position and a really lovely life. But that's not the case for me. Like, I mean, when I came out and started to do this, I took a big pay cut because I valued the lifestyle more than the money. And I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people get really lonely on the road. And that's one of the reasons that I really love traveling to Hacker Paradise, and why I recommend it to other people, is because then you're with a group of people that you get to know, and it's like your family and support structure on the road. Because if you're traveling on your own, you don't have that. And like hanging out with people at a hostel where they are leaving in 2 days or 3 days, it's like, it's exhausting to build a new friend group that often. So like, there's a lot of things about being digital nomad that I love. Yeah. And that's why I do it.
Of course.
The good things still outweigh the bad, but it's not like a perfect paradise charmed life, which I think people at home think a lot. And sometimes the narrative that people push through blogs or whatever seem to be like just rosy all the time. Yeah. And so that's like the thing that I think people at home should know is it's not just all day on beaches and having the perfect life. Things are difficult. If you think having a relationship at home is hard, like try having a relationship on the road. It is wild and crazy and not very long lasting.
That kind of goes back to the commitment issues.
Well, yeah, part of it's my own fault. Someone's like, you want to go out tomorrow? And I'm like, I can't commit until an hour before.
Yeah, like, ask me tomorrow.
Ask me tomorrow.
That's how I'm feeling then.
Yeah.
Last question is just sort of, you could take this anywhere, but just what do you see as being the future of remote work, like across the world? Like, where do you think it's headed?
More of it, for sure. There's been studies that talk about how by the year 2020, which is next year already, which is crazy, about half of the workforce in the U.S. will be remote in some regard, whether that's you can work from home a couple days a week or you're fully remote. So the trend in the workspace is definitely going that way. There's going to be like a lot more remote working in the future. So I think we'll see a lot more things pop up to address some of the negative things that we've talked about with remote work. So visas can be difficult. And I think we'll see over the years, there's like digital nomad visas that start to pop up.
Well, they've already kind of started.
Some of them
Thailand, I think, started one. I think the Netherlands has a good reciprocity with the U.S.
Estonia is trying to do one. So, yeah, it's starting to happen, and governments are the slowest thing around, so it might not happen for like 50 years, but like things are starting to happen. Things to address loneliness, I think, are going to pop up. So you start to see more communities on the road, similar to us, that like provide that social structure. I think that's going to be even stronger. So lots of these things to try to help the current pain points of remote working and digital nomadism, I think, is where like the business and the industry is going.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've even talked to people who specifically are like interested in creating an app for people who do this, because I mean, we've talked a lot about like online dating apps and social apps while we've been here, and none of them really are for our lifestyle, right? Like, how many times have you met someone online who, like, either they like the fact that you're leaving in a day, or they, like, don't even want to meet you because they're like, oh, you don't live here, and I'm not really...
Why am I going to invest my time?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think,
totally.
like, and even not even just for, like, dating purposes, but I think, yeah, just social purposes. Like, hey, I'm a solo traveler, and I want to go visit this castle. Who wants to come with me? Like, just being able to find people in your same situation.
Totally. Yeah, even just not having to explain what digital nomadism is to people. They're like, what do you mean you travel all the time? Right. I mean, I've had people be like, are you independently wealthy? Are you an escort? They just ask all these questions. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I just work remotely.
Yeah.
Like, I promise. Look, there's a company I work for. I promise I have a job. But people just don't understand.
Do you have, like, a go-to, or when you're tired of answering those questions, sort of response of, like, when people don't understand your life? Or do you just kind of, like, let it go? Or do you actually try to fully explain what you do?
No.
Yeah, it's too tiring.
I just say I work and travel.
Yeah.
I say I run a travel company and leave it there.
Yeah.
It's just, like, I always tell people I'm from Chicago. I've never lived in Chicago, but it's just the easiest thing to say to, like, stop all the questions. Of, like, what do you mean you're from Utah? Oh, where's Wisconsin? And all these things that people follow up with because nobody knows internationally. So I say, I'm from Chicago. It's easy. And then you move on to the next topic.
I will say, that's one thing about being from Texas. Everybody knows Texas. And they don't really ask me a lot of questions. But, like, I'll say Texas and they'll be like, I know where that is. Or, like, they've heard of it at least. And so I don't get a lot of questions after that.
Yeah, you guys have a reputation.
We do. Good or bad. There's a Texas reputation.
There it is.
Yeah, is there anything else that you want to add just about remote work in general, or something I didn't ask you about, or Hacker Paradise?
If you're interested in Hacker Paradise, come check us out. We're great.
I'm proof.
We're great. I tell people, the other thing that I try to, like, dispel is people will talk about, oh, there's these blogs that say, you want to work remote, quit your job and move to Bali and figure it out. And I always tell people, no, like, slow it down. Mm-hmm. Like, don't just quit your job and move abroad and live off your savings and then hope something, like, comes together as you go. That gives me anxiety, and it's not even me that's in that place. Like, take some time to think about it. You're making a big career shift potentially. So, like, have a plan. Yeah. And if you're like, I have this plan and I'm going to do this and I'm passionate about this, by all means, go for it. But don't just quit your job and move and live off your savings and hope something comes together. Yeah. Because those people, in my mind, aren't sustainable. They're people that are, like, doing it short term for, like, 3 months or 4 months till they run out, and then they go home burned out. They go home without money. They go home, and maybe they had a great time, but it's different than I think the people that you and I see on the road that are, like, remote working professionals who have a career they care about and can do this sustainably. And I think a lot of it is just having that plan when you go and saying, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to put my efforts and, like, drive to it, and not just, I'm going to go and see what happens. I always tell people that's, like, the worst advice that blogs will give you. Yeah,
I agree. I spent a year and a half planning, like, I knew this is what I wanted to do, a year and a half building up to actually getting to this point. And I will say the whole point about just, like, hoping you'll figure it out, hoping things work out, like, I kind of, I mean, it takes a while once you get on the road to actually figure out how to do this lifestyle, because it is a lifestyle, it's a change, it's something you've never done before, a lot of people don't understand.
Right.
And I kind of expected me a year later to be a little bit further than I currently am. And I realized part of that is because I was kind of just like, well, I'll just figure it out once I start doing it. But I didn't really have a plan in place to figure some of these things out. So now I have more of a plan and I feel better about where I'm headed. But it took, and I think part of it is it took me so long, it took me a year and a half to get to where I was. I just started planning. I wanted to just enjoy it. And I did. I took some time off and I enjoyed being in New Zealand and I enjoyed doing what I finally said I was going to do. But it doesn't just happen.
It doesn't happen.
It really doesn't just happen.
Happens. Nothing just happens. Yeah. So, I mean, I know that's one of the reasons you have this channel too, is to try to, like, teach people about what you've learned and what is really going on out here, instead of just like what people think or what they read on this blog or that blog that's really like rose colored a lot of times. Please
like
don't just quit your
wall.
job. Yeah, looks like these walls. Please don't just quit your job and move somewhere. Like, have a plan. And if your plan is to take 6 months off and enjoy yourself and then do something else, that's great. But just have a plan, people.
And know, if you don't know yet how you like to travel, maybe figure that out a little bit ahead of time too. It might be something that you figure out on the road. And I've been fortunate enough to have different experiences over my 20s that kind of like solidified for me. I like traveling slower. I don't like going from place to place. And that helped me really seek out the types of experiences I wanted, which is how I got into house sitting, which is why I joined Hacker Paradise. Yeah, so like those were like strategic decisions based on what I know that I like to do. And it doesn't mean that what I like to do is better than what other people like to do. It's just to know how you like to travel and what lifestyle you want. If you haven't yet, subscribe and put in the comments any questions you have. I'll answer them. If Spencer's required, I'll just send him a Slack.
Sure. You can ping me. I'm around. We're friends.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes. Ready. I've only had like 2 sips, everybody. I'm not drunk, I promise.
Okay.
Ruff, ruff, ruff. And then you go up a key. Aluminum, aluminum. It's a pretty common one.
I didn't know that one.
I like to talk to America. Hey, America, listen.
Let's get a sip of wine. It is so hot in your room.
Do you want me to turn the air?
I'm sweating. I'm like glistening. I'm gonna have to change clothes after this. I'm like sweating so bad.